We want economic mobility. We want people to be able to move from career to career because we deserve that. As developers are seeing their business become more lucrative, we're seeing sustainable poverty. As I said, we have to keep the elected officials' feet to the fire because they don't want to be held accountable, because they've gotten used to the culture of not being asked anything, kind of being applauded when little things happen. One thing that people will not say about the head of our city is that he cares about us, spreading knowledge, building people power, and working with the workers to ensure the rights of the people of this area, as opposed to relying on and hoping that the current elected officials are going to stray from the status quo and actually do something on behalf of the people who elected them. What's your living wage? And they said $18 an hour. That's a direct contradiction to MIT studies, the living wage calculator, which is telling you that in San Bernardino, based on what it is, you need $22 an hour per person to survive. The way I would see poverty being diminished, proven statistically, is if you saw a rise in home ownership, if you saw a rise in wages, if you saw just more investment locally, if small businesses were all of a sudden able to flourish in an area. That's not the case here. Developers who are coming in, who we know aren't fully going to come through with anything more than minimum wage. And you've got a city that is dealing with $16,000 a year as the average individual income. It doesn't make any sense why the city would continue to boost, but that is the idea here of sustained poverty. And it's kind of the only narrative we ever hear from the city is in regard to our finances. We don't have any money and the city needs to be better. But there's no intention to actually bring real career employment opportunities to this city where we can, such as those relationships to developers who build. They're just building boxes. No one's actually asking them, hey, can we have something inside of the box that will pay me more than $15 an hour? Are you affiliated with people who pay more than minimum wage? Are temporary employment agencies the culture of your workplace that you typically open up to this corporation or these corporations? And why is it so easy to replace workers in this massive sector of the economy that is the logistics industry? And why do cities like San Bernardino have to be those replaced? It's like we're battling each other while battling the narrative of our city. It's only right that you tell them, like, hey, man, if you're not feeling safe, you can apply for unemployment. But why would anybody do that when they're not going to be eligible for something that actually sustains their living and their family? So it's all these different factors that are keeping us right where we're at, which is the city needs more money. The city needs more money. There's no line being drawn to the actual employment and the revenues and the taxes that will come from people who make more money. There's no intention to go beyond the narrative of we're broke, San Bernardino's broke, and it needs whatever it can get. And so in that, we found ourselves sustaining poverty above all things. And so we're seeing kind of a widespread, I don't know, wokeness, or people just being totally aware for the first time in a long time, if they thought about it before, of what exactly makes up the economy, what society functions on, and what their part in it is. And the part that's brought me the most joy, which is, I think what you were saying about the opportunity here, is seeing people finally value themselves over the profit. Our productivity isn't what makes us worth something. Also, it's people starting to just really discover where they are in society. Like, am I just that impoverished statistic that everyone has been throwing out at me and saying, like, hey, shut up and go back to work because you should have worked harder in your youth? Or am I the backbone and the blood of this entire system? But they didn't realize how ingrained going to work and being miserable was inside of them until now. So now we're starting to utilize our social media in the uplift of stories that haven't, to be honest, we weren't uplifting as much as we should have as day-to-day physical organizers. We just, we have those conversations with people one-on-one. People have takeaways and they implement them in their bases. The biggest thing that we could get assistance on and that we can carry through the quarantine is, one, it's the personal. Don't allow yourself to be at the whim of the economy when you are the economy. I know things are hard, but we saw what happened when it all collapsed, and see that as your leverage. See your existence as your right. We want people to know right now more than ever. And we're trying to uplift that in various ways, so people see that I am more than just an Amazon warehouse worker. I am more than a Pep Boys logistics worker. I am more than a grocery store cashier. I'm a person. I'm a resident. I have power. And so it's tying into civic engagement, to be honest with you right now. We're thinking creatively, how do we have this massive voter registration drive during this time? And so it's about creativity. Media is going to be our strong suit after this is over. And we're going to see how to reach people, and especially the youth. I really believe in labor unions, and I see at the end of this, I see a lot more unionization. Labor is going to get incredibly strong after COVID, because laborers are the people who stepped in right now. Get the workers to realize they can organize and they can make demands for their well-being and their families. And overall, to lift the wage. I think labor is going to see a strong increase across the nation in wage. And I think it won't be that hard of a sell, because the economy is going to want to bounce back, and you're going to need people to make more money. What we want is just basic essential guarantees. So we want a living wage, which we haven't clearly defined. We want electrification of on-site equipment, and we want incentives to be provided to the diesel transportation that exists to and from warehouses in order to clean the air in the communities. We want air filtration systems for local residents or immediately surrounding the airport. We actually have a grant from the South Coast Air Quality Management District. A lot of things have come throughout the campaign, kind of assisting in what these asks are. But we'll be able to provide about 20 homes with air filtration systems that will be researched, or the findings and the particular matter that is caught up in these ventilation systems will be studied, and it will lend more to the truth of what we've been trying to ask for in the CBA in regards to electrifying equipment and the benefits of it, because there will be a ton of soot and just PM 2.5 in people's lungs, but they'll see it in their filtration systems. We want worker protections, not explicitly unionization. We're not spelling that out, but we want worker protections for like paid sick time. We're arguing for like this baseline of things that should have existed in San Bernardino but never did. We figure if we can have a resource center that not only creates a pipeline of employment straight to this proposed logistics center in the airport overall, but if we can tie that or create a model of green engineering within these things, because we have the relationships with some of our environmental justice partners, if we can create green engineering in a resource center, then we can connect it to our high schools. We can get some of those people to teach in our high schools, and we create the future that we want to see through the CBA. The goal is to subtly but very intentionally create the pipeline to the future that we want to see. We want an advisory board, not a planning commission seat or a Parks and Rec seat. We want an advisory board for all development that supersedes planning commissions, that supersedes individual tie break and things like that. Honestly, just people power like we've never seen it. We wanted to shift the whole Eastgate campaign, the CBA campaign, is to shift the culture of development. It's community-led development. And then we want to publicize things like track records, well, I know I do, of developers and what the employment looks like, assessing what is going to be the real layout of this in a couple years. What kind of benefit does this bring to my child? Everything we learn, we have to continue to share with the community in the most intentional and public way. It's a culture of inclusion that people will know starts with them. That's the biggest thing that we can offer from this campaign. We have to flip our representation piece by piece, and I think that's happening already. So it's going to be the community input being first and foremost on anything that moves in the city, so that we do have leverage and some kind of angle against the narrative that the city needs money. The city needs money. We're broke. And people actually seeing some of that money. And the only way that anywhere changes is when people have a chain reaction of connection.